lovely series of Mindset Matters. The series of live interviews is actually for you guys so that you can get exclusive practical tips and real life examples from people from different walks of life who are going to come in and share their experiences for the number one thing that matters the most if you need to overcome any challenge or grab any opportunity. And that is mindset. Mindset matters the most whenever you want to overcome any challenge or grab any opportunity. And I'll have guests from different walks of life, entrepreneurs, coaches, tech leaders who are going to share with you their life stories as to how they developed a mindset that helped them overcome the challenge. So my first guest, I am very grateful to Amanda, who has joined us live. Amanda is a thinking coach. She was a tech leader, an enthusiast of STEM for women, and most of all, a survivor, a mentor. And she is going to tell us today how or what kind of a mindset she developed in order to overcome the challenge that she faced and how she moved from the tech career, being a tech leader, to now a coach. Amanda, thank you very much and welcome.
Thanks, Ahmed. Really pleased to be here talking to everybody today. So thanks for the lovely introduction. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some insights, and hopefully that will help people on their journey to where they're going.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's start, Amanda. So
yeah,
briefly, if you can give us an overview as to your journey from the corporate world to becoming a coach or a mentor, if you can give us a highlight around that.
Yeah, well, we're taking a really long step back in time here. I started my corporate career in 1997, so a long time ago. And my journey over the years was with IT and sales primarily. And I had several roles, everything from an account manager and, moved up and became a team leader. I did heads of types of roles in telecommunications, software as a service, managed service, infrastructure, in a range of industries. So, across a range of the industries. And so, I loved my career actually in the corporate world, and I always loved working with customers and figuring out what their business needs were. And I really liked to try and uncover what they were thinking, particularly in sales. You kind of like, what's their motivation, and how can we work on the puzzle to match the tech that they're looking for with the business need that they might have. So, it always kept me really interested in that field. And then working with teams was the way we actually collaborated and delivered complex problems. And that was probably my favorite thing, was actually how do we work together as a team to solve these really complex, big problems for people. So I did an actual thinking accreditation course in 2010. I've probably done every sales course, by the way, under the sun, and I mean every sort of profile and DISC and all these other things. However, I became very interested in a particular methodology and how diverse and improved thinking can actually accelerate the team success. So in 2014, I created my own business, and I ran it as sort of a side business. But now I have stepped into this full time, and so really what I focus on is leveling up teams with improved thinking and finding team superpowers. And there's a big shift, and it's a mindset shift from sort of a side hustle, which it was for a few years, into actually creating this as my full-time, business, I guess. So, and it's a distinct mindset shift, I'd say. So that's a little bit about my background.
Awesome, Amanda. Awesome. Very interesting. For the sake of the viewers, can you tell what challenges you faced in your tech career and what sort of a mindset you developed in order to overcome them?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, in my early career, to be honest, I didn't really think about the barriers in technology because I wasn't a technical person. I was more about on the people side. So I was working in technical roles, like in companies, sorry, but in a sales role. But what I would say is I did notice people's expectations of me. They didn't expect me to be ambitious or want a promotion, which I thought was really interesting because, I kind of came from a background where my father was a very supportive man and very basically told me to just go for it and do whatever I wanted to, in terms of career and education, never put any limits on me. So I found it interesting that other people's expectations of me, they didn't expect me to be that way. An example is at one stage I did an acting manager role for 6 months and I was managing a big team of about 25 people. And I got passed over for the promotion, which was a real setback, right? And it really annoyed me at the time. And I think you're allowed to be annoyed in situations like that where, you're acting in the role and then you're basically not given the role, even though you've just been doing it for 6 months. Big setback. But I realized then, I think that the playing field's not always equal. And from then on, I think I always advocated for women in tech. And I also started to notice a distinct lack of women in leadership roles. And actually, when I was completing my MBA, I focused specifically on what are the barriers for women in ICT when wanting to get into senior leadership. And I guess from there, that really led me to think about, well, what are the activities and things. But for my own personal mindset, it was a process that I had to go through and just kind of, I believed in my abilities and I had always had good support around me saying, you can do this, right from when I was sort of a younger woman. And my husband as well was always, never sort of said, oh, no, I don't think you can do that job because we've got a family and, that's not available to you, sort of thing. He was always super supportive and we would always find a way to do it together. Yeah. So the challenges, I think, are generally what other people think you can't do. And I'm unfortunately, that's a bit of a red rag to a bull with me. I'm like, what do you mean I can't do that? Of course I could do that, So, yeah, I have a bit of a different approach, I think.
That's awesome, Amanda. And what you mentioned about your husband as well. What I believe is, yes, you need a mindset, but in order to achieve or overcome something, you need a supportive network as well. And
100%.
super awesome that you've got a very supportive husband who help you come this far as well. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, a bit about what I would ask is regarding your journey or your fight with cancer.
Yep.
How did you battle that, and how did that change your perspective about life and work?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's really interesting because for me, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020, the whole world was facing COVID, right? So it felt pretty surreal. Everybody was facing something that they had actually not faced before. So my battle was a little different because I think everyone is looking for that epiphany when they have cancer. No, you don't wish it on anyone, right? But the main thing I realized is to stay positive and grateful, right? And, it could have been sort of the undoing, I guess, of me in terms of, you can crawl into a hole and say, well, that's it for me, right? But that's actually not going to help you in any way. So I had to find the joy in the little things, I think, and go get back out there and find those things. My getting a dog actually really helped. But I know that was a lot of people in COVID. So there was a lot of people getting dogs. But having something else to focus on apart from myself was actually really helpful. And in fact, I continued to work through the cancer treatment, because the similar kind of thing. I was like, well, I didn't want to sit there and just kind of think about the negatives of the situations. Like, what can I still do? And I could still work, and I could still take care of my family, and I could still, go and enjoy nature and walks with my dog, even though we were all locked down, right? So I just tried to focus on what I was grateful for, and I had a grateful mindset and a positive mindset. And I very much tried to live in the present, and I did actually do a fair bit of grateful journaling. And then now I've got this big journal of things that I was grateful for during that time. And it reminds me of, to take a step every day just to remind myself of what there is to be grateful for. And there's so much to be grateful for, right?
I think you've touched a very important point there, because the thing is that whatever we have in our life, we focus a lot upon what we don't have rather than focusing on what we have. Now, things are already in front of us. The haves, not haves, the do's, don'ts. It's all about where we focus on, whether we focus on what we have or whether we focus on what we have not, or what we have not done, and how
and
we
exactly. And we're in charge of our own thinking. This is the part, so we make our own choices. I mean, you can choose the thoughts, right? No one can change your thoughts for you. Only you can change your thoughts. So I had a choice about what kind of thoughts I wanted to have, and they were positive affirmations. We all know there's no guarantees, right? There's no guarantees. I mean, that you are going to get through this. So, by being present, staying centered and mindful, and being grateful, really helped me, I guess, face the challenge that was ahead of me in a way that made me feel like I was, whatever direction it was going to go, it was okay, it was satisfactory. Does that make sense?
No, awesome. So what I would ask you as a further question on this is that what mindset shifts helped you most during this time? I know it's a tough, very tough.
No, it's not. I mean, I definitely use daily affirmations. So, I actually do write down a daily affirmation. So today I will be X, or today I'm going to focus on what, like I write affirmations for myself. Today I accept positive energy. Today I accept abundance and well-being. Sometimes they change depending on what the circumstance is. So I often do that, and I say it out loud. And I write it down, because the more you do it, the more familiar it becomes and the less weird it feels for some people, right? The other way that I practice mindfulness is through exercise. And when I say I do a little bit of yoga, where it's, you're very much centered, focused on breath work and things like that. And I probably do 10 minutes of that a day. It doesn't have to be a lot, right? And then exercise for me, and getting out into like the sunshine and walking, is still a big part of, making sure I've got a positive mindset and I appreciate it, the world around me, I guess, is the way that I do it. So it's quite deliberate actions, and it's like any habit, or or any muscle. You have to actually build those resilience muscles up. And then, you find it gets easier as you sort of do it more often. It has for me, I guess. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, this is awesome. So writing down what you've said, and then secondly, mindfulness, and third, doing exercise. And I believe writing down something or doing gratitude journaling is super important. What I would say is writing is better rather than typing it. Why? Because once you write it down, you delve more deeper into your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've always been a big one for writing down my goals, and I can tell you every single thing I've ever written down, I've actually achieved. So, I mean, that's the scary power of writing it down.
Super awesome. Something around, because most of the questions which I also get are around career shift. So what exactly motivated you to shift from your corporate career in starting your own coaching business, and how
Yeah.
did you manage the uncertainty? Because we have lots of fears and
Yeah.
uncertainty, whether this is going to happen or whether it is going to be successful or not. What kind of a mindset you had, and what exactly motivated you?
Yeah, look, I mean, I said before, I really love working with teams, and I've always loved seeing the team succeed. And over my career, I actually had a number of mentees through universities as well. So I go back mentoring to UTS in Sydney and Macquarie Uni, and I still do that to this day. And I think so. I've always been motivated seeing others achieve their goals, and I love discovering new ideas and concepts that help and challenge the team to actually think differently. There's an old saying, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So, the idea of becoming a thinking coach and helping teams to use their actual individual thinking to accelerate success has actually been a focus of mine for a while. And then I think, life, I had a plan to actually step into my own business, and life has a way of throwing those things at you sometimes and challenging you. So when I was retrenched at Christmas from my corporate career, I was like, well, it's now or never, like the universe is actually kind of providing this opportunity for me. Again, I think you could look at that opportunity and go, oh, it's too hard, or I need to I'm not going to back myself here or whatever. I think the fear, to answer your question about uncertainty and fear, it's always there, I mean, but then again, there's another saying that says, feel the fear, do it anyway. Many years ago, someone asked me to jump out of a plane. I thought that was insane. And then I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a go. I jumped out of the plane. I've got to say, I hated every minute of it. I'll probably never, ever do it again. But you know what? Now heights don't scare me that much, because once you've jumped out of a plane at 14,000 feet, you don't get too frightened about, just heights in general, right?
Mm.
So I think, there is fear, and I think we have to feel that fear, acknowledge it, but have a go anyway, because I've always had people in my corner who have really believed in me. And I also use my past to inform my future. I've often been successful in the past, right? And that gives me strength to keep going into my future. So whenever I talk to people about what I do, they're interested, they generally want to have a coffee and a chat. So I know that it's something that people want. And I've actually delivered these coaching sessions and team workshops and stuff successfully over and over again. And I've seen the change that it can actually make to people. So I was like, well, I have a lot of self-belief and I'm open to learning new things. So, this felt like the right time for me. And there are things that I find difficult. However, that gives me a challenge, and I like that. So, I like trying to find out something new. I am pretty self-motivated. As I said, everything I've ever sort of set my mind to in the past, I've achieved it. So I kind of go, my past informs my future. I do think we don't stop enough to look back and recognize those achievements and say, these are the things I've actually done. How can they inform my future? And that's why I kind of feel pretty comfortable and confident, even though, yes, it is a bit scary in going into this sort of new direction.
No, that's awesome, actually, because once you talk about fear, it's that if we don't overcome it, how would we know that what is on the other side of fear? I mean, if we
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
jump into what we are passionate about, or
Yeah,
we don't fully immerse ourselves into, let's say, for our own business, how would we know that whether it is hard or whether it is going to be successful, or how,
exactly.
how, how are we going to overcome that uncertainty? You know what I mean? So
Mm,
once, if we jump into it, then and only then we'll know that how we are going to go in it. Are we going to sail through it, or are we going to drown? But just standing on the shore, we don't know how deep the sea is.
Yeah, and I think I believe in the opportunity, right? I mean, it's interesting, when I talk to people and they understand, I think there is a great opportunity here. I also come to the opportunity from a place of giving. So in terms of rather than saying, oh, I need more for me, right? It's like, what can I actually give to people, right? Rather than waiting to get for myself, if that makes sense. And once you come from a place of giving, it fundamentally changes the conversation, right? So, the more you give, the more you get back. So
Mm.
I mean, and then there becomes this sort of really holistic view of being grateful, right, for what you've got and how that comes back to you. So it's, the more you give, the more you get, I think. That's
Mm.
one of my philosophies.
Yeah, that is actually a key learning for me today for this session. The more you give, the more you get back. I know I'll ask a question around something that you are really passionate about, and
Mm.
that is mentorship. So, so as a mentor to female university students, what key pieces of advices do you give them in order to prepare them for what's coming ahead?
Yeah, look, a lot of the time, the people I've mentored in tech are experts in their field. These people are studying highly technical degrees, cybersecurity or masters of IT, and I'm not a technical person. I don't have that degree. I have an MBA in business, but I don't have the technical aspect, right? And so mentoring these students, the skills that I teach them are not about really their technical degree, right? It is about how they approach things, their mindset, and the fact building their self-confidence and then taking them through what they've actually achieved so far, like a little bit what we were saying before. What have you achieved so far to get here? And like a lot of the students, some of them are international students. They moved countries. They've left their families behind. They're living in a different city. They actually don't have permanent residency even. They're just, so their life can be a bit tenuous. And I said, look at all these incredible achievements that you have already achieved, right? To really help them build their confidence and self-motivation. Because what I've got to impart to them is how can we help them bring out their superpowers, right? So it's all about that rather than and believing in themselves. And we teach them a thing called, it's not bragging if it's a fact, right? So
Awesome.
if you've done it, it's actually not bragging. And it's a key piece of a program I teach, which we can talk about later. But, I run a free session called I Am Remarkable. And we go through what is your remarkable and how do you get to that? And a lot of it is around that belief in yourself.
Awesome. Belief in yourself. That's super critical actually for undergrads to empower them, to tell them that yes, what have you achieved so far?
Yeah.
Have a highlight on that and believe in yourself. Awesome. So,
Yeah.
how has being a woman in tech shaped your approach to confidence and leadership?
Yeah, look, I probably modeled a slightly different model, as I said, because of my MBA background. And I often talk about my journey as a sales leader in tech. But, if you think about it, I also talk about my experimental nature. I've always been curious about technology and how technology works. I have told this story before, but, when I was 7, I remember going to the movies and sitting in the cinema as Star Wars opened in front of me with the huge ship flying overhead, being a little kid, just being in awe, right, of
Mm.
this incredible thing. I didn't know it was a model on a piece of string. I just thought it was cool. And I think, from a technology perspective, I've always been fascinated in sci-fi and tech and how things work and all of that. So not all people in tech are techies, right?
Mm.
But a lot of people in tech are interested just in futures and even, the hot topic, of course, at the moment is AI.
Mm.
But what I do also look at is it actually takes many different types of thinking to solve complex problems. And that's why I often encourage people from non-IT backgrounds to explore opportunities in tech companies, because those people actually bring something a little bit different to the table. Your tech people are typically very analytical, technical, mathematical, all of those sorts of things. And they often are very focused on how to get things done and all that sort of stuff. They tend to be more left brain thinkers, whereas your right brain thinkers, who are a little bit like me, are all about understanding the problem and then how that affects the organization. How does the tech actually solve the problem, and advance the business? And you need both types of thinking to actually come up with a model or a solution to a complex problem. So what I sort of say to people is my approach has been to have the confidence, is realize that my skills are my superpower, right? What I bring to the table is very different to somebody else, but we need all of it in order to really shift the complexity and solve these problems, right, that face us all. And we need diversity in that thinking, not just one type of thinking. So that's what I kind of where I get my confidence, I guess, in my approach to getting people involved in tech.
Continuing with this question, one thing that people normally face as a challenge is making decisions.
Yep.
And that is super critical. And be it within the corporate world, to ask the boss for a raise, or to switch jobs, change careers, or even, like we discussed before, totally jump to doing what you are passionate about and leaving your corporate role. So decision making, and which requires a very, I would say, positive mindset. How have you made some of the difficult decisions in your life, in your career? Any example would be great.
Yeah, look, I think I'm quite an analytical person in that I do like to gather information and look at that options and look at the data. And I do like to collaborate with people as well, right? So I try to view it through a number of different lenses. And for me, often scenario building is very useful when I'm making difficult decisions. I do use a lot of tools, actually, things like the 5 Whys or Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats technique. I use a methodology called whole brain thinking. So I try to use different lenses to make those decisions. However, we're all under a lot of pressure these days, right? And there's not always a lot of time. So if, one of the biggest things I say to people is, rather than rushing into that decision, try and take a step back to analyze and go through these lenses before stepping in. So, and it's not always easy to find that time. It is really important to do. I don't necessarily believe in wrong decisions. I think there's different decisions, and then you have different choices to make, right? But what I would say is difficult decisions, and there have been a number of difficult decisions I've had to face. I mean, one was even just starting my own step, choosing to not go back into a corporate career and choosing to go in forward. I had to go through and kind of look at the information that I had in front of me and where was I at and what would I need to do and what's the timeline and what are my other options and who would I be collaborating with, and build myself that plan and all of that sort of stuff. So it was a difficult decision, but I feel like I made an informed decision with all the pieces of information that I have in front of me today. And that calms me, I guess, in terms of, I know I've done the analysis and the work, if that makes sense, to understand, and I'm comfortable with the decision I've made in the now.
So you are more of an analytical person and do lots of research before making any decisions.
Yeah, mostly, I mean, I kind of try and balance my head with my heart, and balancing your head and your heart
Mm.
can be quite challenging
Mm.
sometimes.
No, no, I totally get that. One question I would like to ask you as well, because this is what I also get asked by most of the people, is that yes, you are coaching people, you are mentoring, but how has coaching influenced your personal and professional life, like coaching others, but how
Yeah.
has that process influenced your professional and personal life?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. I've got to say that on the mentoring side, particularly around students, I have always learned just as much as my mentees, I've
Mm,
found.
mm,
The things that they actually teach me, um, actually sometimes I'm blown away by how clever, smart, focused, they are. So I often find that the lessons they teach me has influenced me. And subsequent to that, I think I've become more open to new ideas. And I realized there's not just one way, there's not one way, there's not one right way, right?
mm,
Everybody's different. Everybody, and some mentoring relationships and coaching relationships I've had have been for a specific thing, for a specific goal, for a specific set of time. That person has wanted help with achieving that thing. And
mm,
others have been sort of more informal, but actually longer,
mm,
because it's a sort of different things. So not everybody is the same. So I've been more open. And I think there's lots of ways to coach. Not everybody has to like me either. And if I'm not the right person for that person, that's okay. So it's a mindset, I think, of, again, coming into mentoring and coaching, of giving, of being vulnerable, and then yourself, and then opening up those vulnerabilities and to others, and then the opportunities actually start to flow. People start to, because you can't hide authenticity.
yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think one of the main traits, I would say, or main message that appeals to the mentees or the coaching clients is your authenticity. Actually, the more authentic you are, the more clients actually uh, get attracted to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think, a lot of my experiences, both personally, but also, professionally, I'm like, can I help other people? So that's and how would my experience help others? And time again, when I share it, I find that, and I give it away, then it actually opens up that opportunity for me.
Awesome, awesome. Something about around the lines of coaching, what are actually your some of your goals or
Yeah.
future aspirations for your coaching practice that you do?
Yeah. Well, here's a mindset thing. I mean, I have really big goals usually, crazy goals sometimes. People would say, they'd look at me and go, that's crazy. Because, I think I want a global business that helps lots of teams find their superpowers. I'm writing a book at the moment. I'm developing an app. I'd love to do some speaking, and people go, whoa, it's funny who will say, oh, that's a lot, or gee, how are you going to do all of that? Or, and it's really interesting because I look ahead and I go, I don't have limits on myself about what that possibility looks like, right?
Mm,
Um, I don't know whether actually, because I mean, as I said before, there are no guarantees in life, right? Things can change very quickly. So I kind of going, well, let's just, see where the road goes, right? Like, and if you set a small path, you'll get small things. If you set a big path, then you'll get big things. That's generally how I feel about it.
Well, that's awesome. We should be having goals uh, which make us get up from the bed in the morning, and like you said, that we should be having bigger paths actually, so that we are excited each and every day in the morning, so that
Yeah.
we get up and walk down that path.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And sometimes, I'd say it can get overwhelming because there seems like a lot of things, right? So, I mean, I talk about to myself, and, I talk to myself. I talk to myself a fair bit, but one of them is actually micro commitments. So it's like, okay, how do you eat? There's the old saying again, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? It's like just making those small micro commitments to myself. Today I will, these are the 4 or 5 things that are, sort of non-negotiable, and I'll just get them done. So it's that sort of mindset around micro commitments as well, because the big goal, it can look really scary, but if you like kind of going, okay, well, here are the micro steps that I actually need to take to move this forward, that then helps me to kind of break it all down and feel like I can achieve it.
Okay, awesome. Amanda, towards now we are almost at the end of our session. One last thing that I would like to ask you is, any advice you would like to give for the people who are watching this, or who are going to watch this, or and are listening and are going to listen to this interview? What advice would you give them, those who are facing challenges, who are facing uncertainty in their lives, any personal challenges, professional challenges? What sort of an advice would you give them to people who are, you can say, on the fence and
I think
very
everybody
uncertain?
has something that is remarkable, right? And everybody has a superpower. Do you speak more than one language? That's a superpower, right? Have you moved countries several times and created a new life for yourself? That's a superpower, right? Have you studied a degree? Have you got a stable and happy family? Like, there are so many things that I think we actually need to recognize as our own, professional and personal achievements. And being brave and actually saying it, can take courage, right? Because I think sometimes people don't want to say it out loud because they think, oh, everybody does this. But your things are unique to you. So how do you take those and amplify it? And being courageous takes practice. So the more that you actually do it and say it and then write it down, I can't say write it down long enough, and write it down, even if you write it down and don't show anyone else, that's okay. Just, write it down, and then just start to try and step into your superpowers, right? Those things that make you amazing, remarkable, unique. What's the point of being like everybody else? I think if you're like everybody else, you're like everybody else. You are you, like, celebrate that fact. And I really believe that, we've all got something that's unique and special to share with the world.
Oh, that's awesome. And being courageous that you've mentioned, it requires one to be uncomfortable as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're not stretching the edge of the circle if you're not uncomfortable. I mean, little kids fall over 10 times when they start to walk, right? So when you start to do something new, adults are not very good with failure. We think, oh, I failed, I'll just, I'm not going to do that again. But once you start to exercise that, and most of us, if we try to go to the gym, you're not lifting 180 kilos on your first time at the gym. You might be only lifting 3 kilos at the first time you go to the gym, and then you build up and you build up and you build up. We don't apply this analogy to our goals really enough, that it's okay and setbacks will happen and things won't always go the way that you planned. But getting comfortable with pushing the boundary and occasionally having the odd setback is how you actually do grow and expand. So it's really important, I think, to kind of focus on that part.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this brings us to the end of our interview session. It was really lovely talking to you, and I've got so much value out of it. My actually key learning is, the more you give, the more you get back. And I hope all of the listeners also have got lots of value. With this session we would like to end, and I would like to thank you, Amanda, again for coming on to this
Yep.
show that I've started, this initiative, this movement that I have started, in
Mm-hmm.
order for people to develop a mindset to overcome that uncertainty that they have in their lives. So thank you very much, and have a lovely day.
Yeah, thanks. And look, I just want to say, Ahmed, like I am running an I Am Remarkable session, which is a free session for anyone who is interested in learning more about that. It's on June 20th, and you can get it at my website, www.newthink.net.au. So, and you're welcome to join, Ahmed. You're
I will
always welcome as
definitely,
well.
I will definitely join that.
I would love to see you there and register yourself, and we'll have a great old time trying to uncover what new superpowers you've got.
Yes. So I think with this we would end this session, that everybody has a superpower and they need to recognize their superpower and be remarkable. And I think write down I'm remarkable and stick it onto their walls somewhere. Thank you very much,
Awesome.
Amanda. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone.